Ninjago Legacy is finally back for the 15-year anniversary of the show, and oh my lord, am I pleased. With Old Town just being revealed, I figured this was a great time to capitalize on the popularity and publicity of the sets releasing, and share my thoughts, because I do have some things to say that, are pretty spicy. So please give it a watch and hear me out, because I got some yapping I want to do. Now, first off, I want to take a look at the Ninja character display 15-year anniversary, because it comes with all of the Ninja, and what better way to start off this video than to take a look at these guys, because there's a good amount of people who aren't too pleased, and I personally, just gonna come out and say it, I love these new figures. First off, the ZX suits are some of my favorite suits of all time. I think they look great, and I think they adapted them in a newer, modern, I guess, style very well. So let's start off with the right side, since I feel like these are the three less controversial ones for very specific reasons, and then we'll get into the left side, where I feel like there's a little bit more grievances. So firstly, Zane. The only real complaint I've seen with him is that he's missing the little leather strap on his legs, and he just has the same printing as Kai, but different color. Personally, I don't really mind it at all, because it's just one tiny little detail, and otherwise it's the exact same, so I'm perfectly fine with it. I understand why people might be a little upset, but in return for losing that tiny little detail, we instead get Zane having a new face print, and that face print is of course his half missing face, which is wonderful to get and makes him probably my favorite figure of this. Kai, it's just his old CX suit, but updated, modernized, so pretty solid. These two, there isn't really too much to say other than Zane's new face print. Next up, Lloyd. Now, personally, Lloyd's my least favorite of the new ZX suits. I think the gold works fine for him. I mean, he's the green ninja and later the gold ninja, so if any of the OG ninja to change from silver / gunmetal to gold, it makes sense for him to do it. And I think they adapted the gold over well, with having the scales kind of show that gold in his torso, and then having just the gold crown being similar to his elemental robes. However, my grievance is his torso, specifically the bottom half, where it just feels very bare. And if you take a look at his OG figure, the belt is, instead of being on his waist, it's instead on his torso, like how it is on the Deepstone suits. And I think that works a lot better for this figure, because without it, the bottom half feels very empty, very spacious, but in a bad way. Like if you take Zane, he's got that leather strap that kind of fills up that space. And then Jay and Cole, they have these armor pieces that help fill out their torso more overall, so the more empty spaces don't really feel that empty when compared to Lloyd's, whose overall torso is pretty empty, just having those gold scales and then those like sag lines kind of. And then there's also his undershirt, which has this weird stained mattress color to it that just doesn't look right to me, and it just feels kind of gross. But overall, it's just like slight nitpicks, but it's enough to make me just not really be a big fan of his new design overall. I really do think they should have kept the belt on his torso as opposed to his waist, but overall still solid. Now we got the left side figures. Now Nia's Samurai X figure, I kind of like that they did something new instead of just remaking her old design, because we already kind of got that with Legacy. Well, it wasn't one-to-one, it was still essentially just like a new version of her original one, and I like that we're getting new copies of her Samurai X suit, because I think it looks very cool. The only complaint that I have is the armor piece definitely feels very small for her helmet, but also I've kind of gotten used to it as I've seen it more. It's kind of grown on me, which has also kind of happened with a lot of these figures, to be fair. But I feel like for her, just having that giant head on top of smaller armor kind of looks like goofy, but in a good way. Especially when you have that large crown piece, it really makes the head just feel huge, and it just feels kind of fun. Would she be better with the Mr. E armor or the ZX armor? Probably. I'm glad they didn't do her original samurai armor, because I feel like that just covers up the printing, and the printing on this torso looks really good, and I feel like it'd be a shame to just cover that up, so I'm glad that they went with a more open armor piece. But definitely it's odd that they gave her such a small one for such a large helmet, but overall, it's not the worst looking thing, and I think it looks alright. Now, where the real controversy begins is Jay and Cole. I'll start off with Cole, since he seems to be the one with the least gripes about him. I think they did a good job, I think the gold with the tan armor doesn't look the greatest. I think it blends in a little too much, and I prefer how the silver contrasts with it, but it's not too bad, and it helps them match with the other ninja with this gold theme for the 15-year anniversary, and I feel like it looks fine enough. Plus, gold and black is a pretty good combo. I mean, gold in almost any color is a pretty cool combo, but specifically with black, I think it really helps it pop out more than like the silver did. So overall, I'm pretty happy. Plus, Cole's original ZX design is probably my favorite or second favorite of the lineup. Now finally, Jay. This is where I probably have the most to say, and where I feel like most people have the most to say, because look at that arm. I like it. That's right, guys. Make sure to leave several comments telling me why I'm stinky and wrong for thinking that. But first, let me explain why. So firstly, gold and blue. I think gold with blue is the best color combo that you can have with gold, in my opinion. Jay's elemental robes, but instead of being silver, you make it gold, I think would be probably the best figure of all time, rivaled only by his skybound suit, which, would you look at that, is gold and blue. And I think it really works here. I'm glad they didn't give him the gold arm because that would look very flashy and just, it would stick out like a sore thumb among the other ninja because you just have this giant gold spot on him and it just looks a bit odd compared to the silver, which is a lot more neutral and is a lot more dialed back. It helps him just stay among the ninja instead of standing out. And then the detailing that they added onto the silver parts with the little lightning bolts in gold, I think look very good and work very well for tying in the gold from his crown and armor piece to his torso. And also just the torso and legs on their own are just perfect. I can't imagine them changing anything about them. I think they look fantastic. Yeah, I can see the disconnect between the gold armor and the silver arm, but it really doesn't bother me that much. Plus, I just think that the strengths that it brings in, for me personally, I just enjoy them a lot more than if they just did the silver armor with the silver crown. Or, God forbid, they did a gold arm. Ooh, no thanks. And lastly, in the set, you have the Master of Lightning, which is the 15-year anniversary figure for this set. And I'm going to wait to talk about the 15-year anniversary figures until I get through all the other ones. But I do think this is a very good-looking figure. Of course, there's also Wu, but he comes in every other set. He looks good. I have no complaints about him. There's really nothing, like, special about him. He's just here, and it's nice to have him. Now, the build itself, it's just the front gate of the monastery. It's got that little gap in the middle, which definitely does throw it off a little bit. But you can post all the ninja around it, and you can connect all the anniversary figures to it, which is a very cool feature for this wave, and I think is done really well to help tie everything together. But the build itself, it's okay, you know. For 45 bucks, I wouldn't say this is a good deal until you factor in the minifigures and the fact that we get 8, and then it's like, holy crap. This is probably the best deal we've ever gotten. Because 8 figures that have unique elements, we get all of the ninja. You get all these new elements in it, and it's just great. Normally when I like to judge a set, I prefer to judge it based on how good of a deal the build is. But this is clearly a figures-focused set, so it doesn't really work here. Because the set itself, but you get 8 figures, which is just insane. Now, next up, we got Lloyd's Titan Mech. Obviously, we last saw this one back in 2019 when it originally came out, but I am really glad that they're redoing this, because the last Lloyd mech that we got in this scale was the Team Combo mech from 2023, and that one, I personally think it looks cool, but oh my gosh, if you try to like play or pose it at all, it just crumbles in your hand, turns to dust. So it's really nice that we're getting a new, very large scale Titan scale mech, especially since the original Lloyd's Titan mech, firstly, is expensive as heck to get on the aftermarket, and also doesn't even have knees. And I mean, like, is it even a Titan mech then? I think the execution of this one is done very well. I've seen some complaints on the torso not being as good as the original. I think it looks fine. I can see how, like, the flyer backpack part is missing, and I can see why people are upset about that, but I think what they replace it with this shield, giving it this kind of, like, jet wing style when it goes on the back, very dialed down from what it originally was. I think it still really works well with how it just spreads out. It's not as big or as grand, but I think you can get a lot more postability out of it, and it doesn't make it feel like too clunky, and it feels more dynamic, which is personally something that I prefer. But again, I don't own the original one, so I don't really know it inside and out, so maybe it is more posable than this one. Probably the biggest flaw that I have with it is that the head just feels very downgraded from its original one and just doesn't look the best, but it's not the worst part, and definitely would be an easy modification to make better. And just the rest of it in total, especially those beautiful, beautiful legs, just looks fantastic. And I am so excited to be getting this again. Minifigure wise, you get Lloyd CX and Grimfax. Getting another way to get Lloyd, that's always cool. He comes in, I believe, 3 sets in his full getup, which is pretty nice. The cheapest one being the anniversary display, but it's still cool that you get a bonus one here. And then you get Grimfax, which is a character that we have not gotten yet, and it's very cool to get, you know, named characters that we haven't gotten in previous past sets, which I feel like is one of the nice things about bringing Legacies, to be able to get characters like this. And then of course we get Hibernus, the elemental master of ice, who gave Zane his power, and it's cool to be getting him, you know, with the other anniversary figures. Again, I'll talk on them later. But yeah, that's really all I have for this set. Alright, next up we got the 4 Weapons Blacksmith Shop. Oh my gosh, it is about time. I've been waiting years, 15 to be exact, to be getting my hands on this set. It looks so good. It may be compact, but first off, it is not an open back, so you do get that back wall detailing from the outside looking in, and it looks great. oh my gosh, you get that 360 degree, and the accessibility to get in there is really easy. You take the middle part of the roof off, and then you just split it open, and you get easy access to everything there. Yeah, we're missing like one or two details because it had to be shrunk down a little bit, like the staircase, but I think that's a fine compromise to make it, first off, manageable, and second off, possible for $100. Because while it may seem small, it is densely packed. There is so much stuff on the inside. We also get quite a few minifigures. Obviously not as much as other sets, but if you look at like 130 Titan Mech, you only get 3 here. $100 blacksmith shop, you're getting 6. And you have pretty much every detail that you could want out of it. It's just fantastic to see, fantastic to get. You get 3 exclusive figures, being Blacksmith Kai, who has been, wanted for eons. Yeah, we got the Markets one, but like, that's not the suit. And then we get Serpentine War Ray and Maya, which is amazing. Oh my gosh. Plus, it's great to be getting new versions of these guys, since the only other set they came in was from 2017, and it was also $100. I am lucky enough to already have these guys from when I got that set as a small itty bitty child, but definitely for people who weren't able to get it, this is fantastic. Sure, it's not their modern designs, but even those older ones aren't their modern designs anymore anyways, so I don't think that matters too much. Plus, since these are their Serpentine War suits, you can also count them as anniversary figures, and personally I do. I personally plan on getting my hands on like 3 of the anniversary Ninja displays, so I'm probably going to be using the extra 2 stands that I get from it to use for Ray and Maya. Slap them on the sides there, and it's going to be great, and I'm just so excited to get these guys. You also get Cole's grandpa. I don't remember what his name is, and I don't feel like looking him up. He's just the bad guy from the Serpentine War, he was the mean stinky guy. But oh my gosh, his figure looks great. Plus, I think the concept of just like a elemental master turning to the dark side, turning to the bad side, switching sides and going against the Alliance is just really cool. Outside of what they did with the Time Twins, is a little bit different than what I'm talking about, because this guy fully just switched sides as opposed to becoming his own faction. And this figure itself just looks cool. It's menacing. It looks like he's got some power to him, like he can really pack a punch, and like he can handle a couple elemental masters on his own. So it's definitely going to be really cool to get my hands on this guy. Plus, we're able to get another ancestor of one of the main ninja, as we are with pretty much every ninja in this wave. Getting Nia and Kai's parents, getting Jay's mom, Cole's grandpa. It would be cool to get Lily, but then we wouldn't be getting the full Serpentine War lineup. So I'm fine with getting Bertrude over Lily, and he's also just a really cool figure. Using the full silver, just what a menace. And then we get Wu, same thing, different set. Nia in her classic suit, I think looks great. They gave her old hairpiece, which I think works fine. I get why they were able to give her old hairpiece and not Kai, though I really wish they would give him his non-headband piece, because we haven't gotten that in a minute, and I only have like 3 of them, and I'm pretty sure it's still in production since they used it in the Lord of the Rings set, but I don't know. Really, this headband is the only nitpick that I have of this entire lineup of figures. I think it's overall great, and the set is just basically perfect. It's just fantastic, and I am extremely excited. This is probably my most anticipated set, besides maybe what's coming up next, but this is just beautiful, and I'm pumped for this. And finally, we have the largest, most expensive, and most hyped set of the wave, the Old Town 15-year anniversary. Now, obviously, I don't have this in my hands yet, unfortunately, but based off of the pictures that we do have in the interviews that I've seen showcasing this set, I am just in love with everything this has to offer. Personally, I think this is probably the best thing we could have gotten as a flagship set for the 15-year anniversary, given LEGO's budgets and limitations that they put on all of their sets. Firstly, I want to start with the build because it does a little something different than most of the other Ninjago DTCs that have been coming out recently. Obviously, last year we had the Tournament Temple City, and that one broke away from the typical DTC situation that we've had since Ninjago City, of it just being the same city modulars, which of course personally I love to get more of, but I am so glad that it's doing its own thing. First off, there's only so much room that I have for the LEGO Ninjago cities, so I think it's great to break it up every once in a while I try to find another table. But also, it just gives a little more visual flair to the DTCs that Ninjago has, and makes them feel more unique, especially for the flagship set of the 15-year anniversary. It would be kind of odd to just do the same formula they've been doing for the past couple years, the same thing they did for the 10th anniversary. And it's nice to see them mix it up a little bit to just show how much Ninjago has changed throughout the years, including building techniques and just overall presentation. Plus, this gives a very nice way to just have one complete unit, one complete set, that you don't have to have other sets to feel like it's one complete build, one complete area. This is its own capsulated thing, and it just looks beautiful. Personally, I have no issues with the build whatsoever. I know there's some people who are disappointed that we aren't getting another Ninjago City, but to be fair, we did just get one last March, and it makes sense that they'd want to take a little bit time off. So I think the direction they went in here is fantastic, especially with the way that you can take it apart and rearrange it to make it a little more easy to shelf. Because Lord knows that my shelves are not able to handle something this large, so it's nice that we can take it apart and kind of smush it together a little bit more. But yeah, the build is fantastic. All the Easter eggs, personally, I think this is the best Easter eggs we've gotten in any Ninjago set, any Legacy set. Previously, Gardens, I think, had amazing Easter eggs, but a lot of those Easter eggs were dedicated to other LEGO themes as well. And while they're cute, nice add-ons that help celebrate LEGO as a whole, I think it's nice to focus specifically on Ninjago, especially for their anniversary set. So it's really cool to see them go all in on getting a little mention to every single season, especially with something like the Green Ninja Scroll or the Zane missing poster. Those are just wonderful additions to get. It really makes it feel like it's celebrating all of Ninjago, which is great to see for their 15-year anniversary. Anyway, onto the minifigures, because I feel like this is where a lot of contention is within this set. This set has the most amount of figures in any Ninjago set, if I'm not mistaken, and personally, I think the lineup is great. We get 23 minifigures, 12 of which are exclusive and figures that we and me have been wanting for so long. But there's one pretty big issue, and it's that about a third of them are missing any leg detailing. This has been a problem in LEGO's D2Cs for a while. I mean, take a look at the Death Star, take a look at any Marvel modular, or any Marvel set for that matter. And then of course you can look at Ninjago City Workshops, which is probably the worst offender Ninjago's had of a minifigure lineup in a D2C. And while this is significantly better and probably the best we've gotten in a Ninjago D2C, it is still not perfect. And this by no means is the fault of the designers. They did a wonderful job getting as much as we could out of the figures, more than we've ever gotten in probably any other Ninjago D2C ever. If you look at other large Ninjago sets, usually we either don't get many figures, or the figures that we do get are mostly civilian figures, or just don't have much detail, like Workshops or Gardens. Despite how much I love that set, definitely is full of random civilians that are just reused parts. Though that set is the best build in all of LEGO, so I can let it slide. So it definitely is disappointing to see that we still aren't getting the full minifigure treatment in a LEGO set, even in an original theme. I can see why they wouldn't in license themes like Star Wars, like Marvel, where they have to pay a licensing fee. But in their own original theme, the fact that they can't shell out the budget to give us Garmadon with just 2 little tethers going down from his belt, or Dr. Julian with just 2 lines giving us that lab coat look, I think is a bit absurd. Obviously, this isn't the biggest offender, and overall, this minifigure lineup is still fantastic, and I love it a whole bunch. But there is an overall problem within LEGO that they do have. And just write it off as, oh, you can get his lab coat in another set from another figure. I shouldn't have to buy a whole nother figure, order a whole new part, just to complete a minifigure that should be completed in a $300 set. Now, personally, when it comes to adding new elements like a hat hair combo for Mistake or the Mailman or Dr. Saunders' mustache, I don't think that's as big of a deal personally, because I do realize that would have to increase the budget a lot more than adding in a new mold from a previous set, because making a mold to be introduced in a set does increase the budget as opposed to just reusing an older mold, if I'm not mistaken. Probably should do some fact checking, but I'm lazy, so personally I can let that slide. But I think that the fact that we don't have even the full belt on Legacy Garmadon, a printed piece that already existed and has already been in set, is just insane. Overall, LEGO definitely needs to increase the budget more when it comes to large sets like this, and it's just sad that they refuse to. But what the team behind the set has done, I think, is fantastic, especially given LEGO's track record with previous sets, like the Death Star, like any of the Marvel modulars. So what Lee Chi-wing and the others were able to do, and what we do get, I think is great. So while there is definitely a problem with LEGO budgets, I am still not disappointed by this minifigure lineup in the slightest. Sure, some are more underdeveloped than what I would have liked to see, but what we do get, I think, is fantastic, and is definitely the best lineup we've seen in a large D2C set, in possibly any theme, I would say. And overall, I am pleased, despite LEGO's overall lack of budget when it comes to large D2C sets like this. Given LEGO's track record of previous sets and previous minifigure lineups, I think this is probably the best that we could have gotten, and I am overall pleased to have these guys, and it's just amazing to see. For $300, I am absolutely picking this setup. in a year when I can afford it. But yeah, that wraps up my thoughts for the new Legacy Wave. Overall, I think it's amazing. The figure lineup we've gotten in this wave is probably the best that we've seen in a long time, and then all the builds that we're getting are amazing. But yeah, overall this wave is fantastic. Thank you guys for sticking around and hearing me yap about it. Let me know what you all think about in the comments below. Give me some of that sweet engagement. Don't forget to throw your device across the room if it's a heavy PC setup, left with your legs. Wouldn't want you throwing out your back, and just chuck it out the window and go for a nice stroll. And yeah, when you're done with that, maybe hit the subscribe button. Bye bye.